Okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm going to get going on our Bluebeam Revu webinar. A little bit about myself before we get started. My name is Josh Gianfrido. I've been with Microdesk as a solution specialist coming up on 8 years now, providing software training, project mentoring, and overall BIM support. My background as far as Bluebeam, I have a level of certified consultant with them, and last week I finished up my instructor certification training. I'm still pending to hear my results, but I'm assuming that went all well, and I'll be a certified instructor within the next week or so. I also have some Revit background, and I got into the original, came from the AEC industry as a structural engineer, and that's how I ended up joining Microdesk. The company Microdesk has been around for 25 years. We're an AECO industry consulting firm with offices across the United States and also in London. And we have currently approximately 200 or so people in positions like myself who come around and train. All right, so a little bit about what you can expect in this webinar. For those of you who have used Revu 2017, you'll have noticed in Revu 2018 a major change to the user interface. So that's what we're going to discuss mostly today. The change is there to help you guys. It's to make navigation more simple, and it's also to put more important information in front of you when you need it and not hidden inside of panels and harder to find. So really, if you guys have used 2017 and have now transitioned in 2018, you're probably wondering where a lot of your stuff has gone. So I like to call this slide, "Where did it go?" And we're going to talk about all the things you see on this slide and where they used to be located and where they're going to be located now when you're using Revu 2018. So the first thing that's probably the most important to individual users is their profile. And if we look in 2017, your profile used to be under the View tab, and we had a Profiles icon, and we used to set our profiles through this. We could create custom ones. Now, if we go to Revu 2018, you're going to set your profile through your Review tab button, or we can call it the menu command tab. And we're going to go to Profiles, and we're going to have either predetermined ones, or you can, again, manage profiles and create your own. One of the ones that comes out of the box in 2018 is called Revu Advanced, and that's one I really like, so I'm going to switch to Revu Advanced. And again, you can completely customize these to be whatever you would like them to be. Maybe you have one for your company, company-wide, so everyone's screen looks the same, or maybe you let each individual users set their own profiles. The next major topic to know where it went would be your administrator and your preference settings. So if we look in Revu 2017, that would have been in the upper right corner under settings. And we had both administrator and preferences located here. Now for 2018, you're going to go to the review icon, and both preferences and administrator will be located there. Preferences are kind of a universe, or more of a individual user set of settings. Administrator is more of the global, how does Revu work with other programs and that type of settings. The next thing we'll talk about is how we access our panels. So in Revu 2017, you had a drop-down arrow that allowed you to determine which panels would be on. And then we used a fly-out arrow to open the panels themselves. So if I wanted to be able to go to my bookmarks, or if I wanted to go to my settings, I would have different panels available to me on different sides. And I had the ability to open and close those, and I had the ability to turn them on and off. Now in Revu 2018, you will see that your panels are sort of already minimized. If you want them to open up, you can click on a panel and it'll open it up, maybe the tool chest. We also have panels on the other side, so if you needed to see properties, or if you needed to work with spaces, we have our different panels. Now, in order to turn them on and off, we no longer have a little orange arrow, so we would right-click on the panel area and go to Show, and we can determine which panels we want to have on. You can also customize these by just clicking and dragging, and you can move one panel to the other side and customize how you want your layout to look. This is the studio panel. And again, by clicking it, you can close it. We also now have the ability to right-click and auto-hide our panels, which will make them leave the screen unless you move your cursor to the edge of the screen, and that gives you some extra space if you need the room around when you're working on your PDF and you want to have an extra room on the document. You can hide the panels now. I'll unhide them just so we have them. Okay, the next new feature that they've added for 2018 is the document or the properties bar. So if we looked back in 2017 and we wanted the information on one of our markups, we would select the markup, and then we would need to go to the panel and open up the properties tab, and we would then see the markups properties. For Revu 2018, you now can select a markup, and instantly up in the properties bar, you will now see all of the information that you need for adjusting the markup, whether it's the color, the font, the different line weights, can all now be adjusted right from the ribbon. You do still have your panel for your properties, and some of the properties that maybe don't quite fit up on the ribbon will show up here, things like adding your, changing the subject and whatnot. Also, if you scroll to the bottom, you still have your add to tool chest and set as defaults, which you also don't see up in the ribbon. But the typical settings that you're going to need to access quickly are now displayed in your ribbon for you, and you won't have to keep accessing the panel for properties in order to make these minor changes. So speaking of markups, the way we access our markups list has changed slightly. So if we look in Revu 2017, if we wanted to see our markups list, we would come down here to the center of the screen. There's a flyout arrow at the bottom. We would select that. It would launch out our markups list, which we could always adjust the height of that as well. And that's how we accessed it. So we can open and close it through this little flip arrow. Now in Revu 2018, you're going to access that through the panel on the far left bottom. That looks like a little menu bar, and it says markups. If you click that, it'll lift up your markups list, and you still have the same access of grabbing the markups list, making it larger, making it smaller, whatever size you need it on your screen, you can change that. So some other changes with the markups list themselves have to do, first off, with how you manage and apply your statuses. So if we go into 2017 and we wanted to change the status of a markup, we would use this little stoplight icon, and we would select that, and we would pick what status that we wanted to add. When you're inside of Revu 2018, you're going to do something similar, but you're going to select the row that you want to adjust the status on, and then you'll use this icon for adjusting the status. So the icon changed location. It used to kind of be up here in a ribbon. Now it's down in the status column, and the icon changed slightly how it looks. But the way it works would be the same. The other thing that changed inside of your markups list is how we create our PDF summaries. So if we go to our 2017 version, we had a summary icon, and we would be able to select the PDF report summaries for our markups list, CSV if we want, or XML. We could also now in 2018 create summary reports, and we do that through this icon. So instead of seeing the word summary, you're just going to have to know what the icon is. It does say summary when you hover on it. If you press the down arrow, you'll see the same type of options are there for you. Your document properties used to be located under the Review R button. You're now going to find those in two locations. You can either go to the document ribbon, or you can go to the properties when you have the document selected. So you'll see that in Review 20, and I'll minimize this for now, 2017, we would come here and we would look at document properties. Now in 2018, you're either going to just deselect everything, escape out is deselecting, and you'll see the document properties live here, show document properties, or you can go to your document tab in the ribbon and document properties will be the first one. And again, I'll minimize markups on this one as well. Okay, if you need to add a blank page into your document, in 2017, that was done in the lower right-hand corner. There was a blank page icon. You'll now find that on the upper ribbon next to your document properties. So before we would have clicked blank page, insert blank page. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this icon here for inserting blank page. Also, always be aware that you can go to document and insert and add pages through that as well. We're just talking about finding it quickly on the ribbon. Flattening. So flattening is how you take your markups and you essentially embed them into the drawing. You take out all the smarts. That way somebody seeing your document wouldn't necessarily be able to read your markups list, but they would be able to access and see what markups you placed on your document. So before we used to do that from the document tab, and then flatten was an icon that would show up. Now we're going to do that through document and flatten. We also, in our profile for the Review Advanced profile that I'm using, we also have flatten right in our ribbon as well. So if we chose to, we can flatten using the icon right on the toolbar. Reuse, so that's reusing your markup tools. Before it used to be up in the review button in the upper right corner. They've now moved it, since it's to reuse tools, they've moved it to the tools menu bar. So we'll take a look at where they've changed that. Before, if you wanted to reuse a tool, we would select it from here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to tools and we're going to turn it on and off here. And just to give a quick demonstration of what that does, currently it is not on. So if I select one of my commands, you'll see that, let me grab one down here. You'll see that it lets me place one and then it sort of leaves the command, and I would need to select it again and place it again. If I go to tools and I turn on reuse, I can now select that tool and it will let me keep placing them as many times as I need to. And that's a toggle on and off. So I'll turn it off and now it'll become a single tool at a time. Snapshot. So if you'd like to capture some of the information within your own PDF and then put it back inside of a new PDF or maybe your own PDF, you can use Snapshot. There is a shortcut for it. That's what this little G sitting here is for. You can see that in the menu. There's actually a G next to it, and that tells you what the shortcut is. But let's go take a look at where it moved to. So before, it was under Edit. Now we're going to go to also Edit and Snapshot. So if I wanted to, I could grab Snapshot, zoom in somewhere, take a little picture of that, Control V to paste it, and now I've duplicated that piece of information on my PDF. And again, we could also just type the letter G on our keyboard, and that also puts us in the snapshot mode. Okay, the next thing we'll talk to is snap to. So when you're adding markups or you're adding additional information, you can have it snap to the PDF or you can have it not snap to the PDF. Before, that lived in the review button, and we had our snap to options. So we can show a grid, and then once we show the grid, we can snap to the grid. We can have it snap to content, which would be the PDF, or we can have it snap to our markups, which would be things that we've added. Now that's going to live under your View tab. So if we go to Review 2018, and we go to our View tab, you will see that there are show grids, and then we also have the snap to grid, snap to content, and snap to markup. Okay. The next one to look at is your stamps, and where you can either place stamps that are out of the box or create your custom stamps. So before that used to live under a stamp icon. Oops, sorry about that. I'll take it back where I was. There we go. So before, you used to see stamps under markup, and we had our stamp icon. Now, if you go into Review 2018, you're going to go to Tools, Stamps, and then you can create custom stamps if you would like to. So if you want to create a custom stamp, looks like we had a question about how to do that. So if you create a custom stamp, you can then decide what type of stamp it's going to be. And maybe we have one with text. And then you can come in here and you can start editing this, adding shapes to it, making it whatever you want it to be. When you're done, you want to save it. So you'll save it to whatever name you want it to become. And then when you need to use it, if we go back over into our area where there's custom stamps, you can see some of the stamps I've made ahead of time, things that have my picture in them with today's date and time. You can also create stamps that are for review. So if we look at something like this submitted one, you'll see that when we create this, it actually brings up a dialog box. So this one was built where we can then check on what type of submittal we're going to have. We can fill in some information. And we can say OK. And you see it's actually filled in that information for me. So toolbars are fully customizable. You're able to turn them on and off. You're able to determine what is on the individual toolbars. So if we go to 2017, we saw that the toolbars were under the View tab, and we had some options here for what we wanted on and what we wanted off. We also had the ability to customize. Now inside of Review 2018, for your toolbars, you're going to be able to go to Tools and Toolbars, and you'll see which ones are on and which ones are off. And if you want to be able to customize them, then you need to be able to, or if you want to be able to make them look however you want to be able to customize them, that's this dialog box here. So as one example that I like to show, the way the bottom of my, they call this the navigation bar. Currently, what I would like to see on there is maybe something for synchronizing my pages, which they don't really have right now. But they have things like splitting your windows. So I'm going to go and I'm going to search for all the commands, and I'm going to look for synchronizing. I'm going to find synchronizing windows, synchronizing views. I'm going to push it over towards my toolbar called navigation bar left. I'm going to choose to move it up a little bit. We can see that. Now, I don't really need to have the ability to split my window horizontally. I don't mind being able to do vertical, but horizontal is a little bit much. If I need that, I can always go to my View tab and find that icon as well. What I'm doing is just trying to clear a little space down here so that way my new icon will fit without these being ran into each other. So I've turned one of them on, this new one, synchronized views. I've turned one of them off, this one here, which is the split element, or horizontal. So I'll say OK, and you'll see that my icon down here has updated itself. And again, if you wanted to just turn some on or turn some off, we can go into Toolbars, and maybe something like the measure tool is not needed. So when I turn this off, you'll see all the purple icons up here go off. So we'll say turn that off, and now you see we can sort of, again, customize our profile is what we're doing here. Okay, well, next talk about if you need to access the web. Before we had the ability to launch a web tab. Now, if you want to do your web tab in 2018, you're going to go to Window, and you'll have Web tab. So if you wanted to be able to search for any kind of help inside of here, or if you wanted to, maybe there's a spec that you need to go online and find, you can search the web right through Bluebeam. You don't actually have to close Review and open the browser. You can just do it right in from here. So you can open up a web tab, and it'll default and work just sort of like an internet browser now. All right, and now if you need to email your PDFs out, before in 2017, you would find that under your File tab, and then we had our email options. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go to File and Email for emailing. This would be to be able to email it directly right from here. Most of the time, I would imagine you're opening Outlook and doing it as an attachment. But if you needed to, you could send it directly from here. Registering the product. If you need to register your product, you want to go to the Review button, and you want to, in my case, it's already registered, so unregister is what the option is. But if you were on maybe a 30-day free trial and then you obtained a license, or if you needed to unregister a product and move it from one machine to another, all of that is now done through the Review button and unregister/register. And Studio. So Studio used to be accessed through a panel that was on the right-hand side. This was our Studio panel. And now Studio is accessed through a panel. I moved it to this side, but this is my Studio projects, and these are my Studio sessions. And for those of you who haven't heard of Studio, what that is Studio is Bluebeam's offering for a cloud solution. Projects are, you can think of projects as sort of a Dropbox. The Dropbox can hold any type of file that you want, any file size. There's no limit to it. You don't really have to have Bluebeam Revu to access that. You can certainly use the free trial, and once it expires and becomes a viewer mode, that's fine. So it's not, the people you're working with don't have to have Bluebeam. And it's something that is not really live, but you can check files in and check files out, and that's kind of what Projects does. Sessions, on the other hand, which is the other half of Studios, Sessions is a live collaboration tool. So when you're inside of a Studio session, you are able to be sharing the same PDF with other stakeholders, regardless of where they are in the world, really. As long as they have an internet access, they can be part of your session. Sessions do have some limitations. They're pretty large. You can invite up to 500 users to a session. You can have up to 5,000, and a session only does PDF files, but you can have up to 5,000 of those loaded into your session. And those files have to be limited to 1 gig each. They can't be bigger than that. But again, people don't have to own Bluebeam to interface with you. They can download the free trial. And again, after 30 days, the trial just turns into a viewer mode, which allows them all the access of doing what you're doing in the session. They just can't save anything. but that's fine because the session automatically saves for you. So that's not a problem. And what you can do then with sessions is you can have one file, one PDF, maybe for the life of the project, and all the subs linking in, marking up together. And the great thing there is you cannot edit or change somebody else's markup. So you don't have to have any worry about that. Whoever makes the markup is the only person who can adjust the markup in a session. Okay. So Bluebeam offerings, I want to make sure that everyone on the webinar understands the different flavors of Bluebeam. We have, if we're talking about, and I guess we should even back up a step from there and make sure we differentiate between Bluebeam and Revu. So Bluebeam is a software company. Revu is the software that we all use. Now, we all call it Bluebeam kind of interchangeably, and they understand that. But if we're talking exact, we would say Bluebeam as a company, Revu is the program we use. And Revu comes in 3 flavors. You get standard, you have Revu CAD, and you have Revu Extreme. Revu standard is kind of the basic set of markup and editing tools. Revu CAD is for those BIM and CAD users. It gives you plugins into your CAD software. And then Revu Extreme is for that high-end user who wants to be able to automate processes and really take it to the full extreme. Then on the other side of the slide, you see View and you see Mobile. So View used to be a product in 2017. For 2018, there really is no free viewer anymore. What they have you do is download the free trial, and after the trial expires, then you have the free viewer. But it's not a separate program per se. And then there's also the mobile solution for iPad, which will let you access, maybe using it in conjunction with a session, you can access that PDF live in the field and be able to mark it up in real time. So this breaks down a little bit more as to what each one gives you. I'm not going to go through all of these. I just like having them in the slides. But essentially, the standard is what you're seeing here. You get all of the main features. For CAD, what we add in are the CAD, like I said, add-ins. So if I'm in Revit, if I'm in Rhino or Navisworks, I will have a Bluebeam icon that I can then export my 2D and 3D PDFs right into that space. And then finally, Extreme, what that gives you is things like OCR, which is optical character recognition. So if you're scanning old PDFs, you can actually have Bluebeam turn that into searchable text that can be edited and adjusted. It allows you in Extreme to create automatic forms. It also allows you to do some of the stuff that we might do with the regular version, but in batches. So I can batch sheet change, or I can batch apply stamps and things like that. So before we get into questions, I did want to show a couple workflow processes. I already showed you a little bit about customizing your toolbars. I wanted to show you guys how easy it is with Bluebeam Extreme if you need to build a form. So what that means is I'm going to go here and start a new document. And I'm going to use a template that we have. In this case, it's called RFI. And this is a document that Bluebeam supplies to you when you purchase Revu. And you'll see now, I mean, if I needed to, I could go and grab my text command and open this up, and I could start typing dates in here. But it's really not tied to this cell, and I would need to copy a lot of text boxes around, and it's really not a searchable tab through it type form. But if I wanted it to be, I can have it that way. And so under Tools and under Form, we have an ability to automatically create forms. And it's able to understand that with the lines and the boxes and the headers next to them, what these fields should be. If it doesn't do it perfectly, you can certainly do it yourself. You could fill these in and decide what they need to be, but I'm going to let it do it automatically, and we'll take a look at that. And again, I should point out this creating of this form is only available to users of the Extreme version of Revu. Before we can actually start using it, I have to save it. So I'll do a quick little save as. Call it RFI form. And now, as even a user of standard Revu, I would be able to come in here and tab through this and search and make this something that I can do pretty fast now. So that's one of the powers that you're going to find with Extreme. Not only is it able to understand, it picks up things like this is a date, and it's going to want a date in here. So if I try to put letters, it's going to tell me, sorry, that's not a date. So I need to go in there and put an actual date, and then it understands it. Same with signature, it's going to look for a digital signature. If I have one installed, I'd be able to sign this form digitally and place that in there. So you can even create radio buttons. We don't see any of those just because I didn't have checkboxes, but it would create those automatically for you. And that's something that I recommend if you guys are sending RFIs, and if you're able to use the Extreme version, I would recommend creating these into forms that you can then fill out quite quickly. Another thing I wanted to demonstrate a little bit is how to start a session. So if we have, we'll close out of these things for now, maybe close the panel a little bit. If we wanted to create a new session, we would first launch our studio panel. So that could be, hidden over here somewhere, just if it was where I started. You fly out that panel. You'll need to make sure you're connected into Bluebeam's account. So that is an account you'll set up. They just basically need an email address and your name, and then you'll have an account. So to start a new session, we'll hit the plus sign for add, and then we'll say new session. It'll ask us to name it. It'll ask us if we want to add files to it. If we had any files open, we could have added those. If not, we can go to the add button and find some files and add our own files. Maybe we'll add this form that we just created. We have some options for global permissions as to what other users can do. As the administrator of this, I'll always be able to say add documents, but if I want to restrict users from doing that, I can. And then I could decide if I want this session to expire as well. So we're going to say OK, and that'll create the session. And then we'll see that the panel over here changed a little bit. So it now shows myself in the session, it shows the form that we loaded, and it's kind of showing a record of what's going on. And now I could go and I can email and I can invite people to my session a few different ways. You can go to your address book and invite whole groups. You can go here to the add individual emails. If I click that, it's one email at a time. Or you can actually copy the invitation and stick it into Outlook and invite everyone. What they're going to need to join your session is basically this 9-digit code. And if you have that 9-digit code, which also lives up here, and because I set my, let me say OK, because I have set mine to not restrict by your permission, you're not restricted to be able to add yourself by email. So if I wanted to, I can check that on, and now only people whose email addresses I place in here could attend my session. With this number, anybody could attend the session. So that pretty much concludes what I had planned to demonstrate or show you guys today. Let me go ahead and look through a little bit of the questions that I'm seeing, and we'll see if we can answer some of those on the fly here, or if some of those will need to be a follow-up. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to take a look. What is the best way to share a list of invited reviewers with all of the reviewers? So I'm guessing that means in a session, and you're going to be able to go to your list of attendees, and you would probably be able to take a screenshot out of that. Also, once people are inside of your session, then they would see the list of attendees there as well. The question is basically, if you have a document, and let me leave this session. Oops, sorry. Leave that session, go back here, and just get a form. OK. So the question is, if you go to something like your typewriter tool, and you place the typewriter, and you place your markup in here, and you want to go ahead and customize this, so we select it, maybe we pull out our properties panel, and maybe things like our color, we wanted it to be a green box, and we needed it to have a little bit of yellow fill, and our font needed to be some other color in bold. Now, the next time I click my typewriter command, it's back to what I started with. So the question is, how do I make the typewriter command come out looking like this now? And the answer is you select that once you've made the change the first time, scroll down to the bottom. Oops, sorry, my scrolling changed one of my settings here. There we go. Select it, scroll down to the bottom, and you want to hit this button here that says Set as Default. I also believe you can right-click on it and find Set as Default. Yes, you can. So once you set that as the default, you'll now select your tool, and you'll select your typewriter tool, and when we start typing this time, it is the default for my typewriter tool. There is sort of another way around that. One of the ways I like to do is using my tool chest. So you'll notice that each one of those commands I placed has entered itself into my recent tools of my tool chest. And if I know I like the way this one looks, I can click and drag it and place it up into my tools. And once it's in my tools, now I can use that as a tool that I can place. And my tools, or any of these tools, have two different ways that you can use them. You just saw me doing it one way where I'm just placing the same exact item. But if I double click on that, it will change back to the generic icon, which means now when I select it, it's just giving me the ability to type something new. So you can use this icon in two ways, and that's sort of changed my default. That would allow you to leave the typewriter default alone and still have your custom ability, which is what I'm showing here. So I'm getting a few questions about stamps and how to make those dynamic stamps, and I will be honest with you on that. I have never programmed one of those myself. What it is JavaScript that does that. So we can open one of these if you want to see what it is inside, but as far as how those are built and how those are made, that would be something we would need to maybe take offline and do it as like an advanced stamp creation class. And we would have to get you with one of our app developer group that does programming, because that's how that gets done. It's through JavaScript. Why does Bluebeam stop working in Revit and the only way to fix it is to reboot Revit? That one I don't have a good answer for. I would say we would need to maybe file a case with Bluebeam directly. If you're getting any error messages or anything that tells you a message about why it's crashing or why it's freezing, certainly forward those to us and we will open a case with Bluebeam and they'll be able to answer that better than I would. There's a question about changing the interface to look like 2017 without customizing everything. You would have to customize it yourself. There is not a setting that Revu or Bluebeam have given you that would just be like a one-click, pick this profile, and you'd be at 2017. I have seen firms do that. The good news is once one person in the company does it, they could disseminate it out to everyone and let them all have it. All you would have to do is under Profiles, come over here under Manage Profiles, and you can import and export profiles. So if you create one that's custom for it's a 2018 profile, usable to look like 2017, you would just be able to come here, export it. Once you export it to your team members, they would be able to click import and bring it in, and everyone would have that. But no, there is not an out of the box, just flip a switch. Okay. See if we got any other questions. So I got one that says, with the batch sign and seal feature, is it possible to set a fixed height and width for the imported seal so that it meets the parameters of the title block? That one I'll have to do a little digging and get back to you. I don't have that answer off the top of my head, sorry. So I'll respond to James when we can see that offline. Okay, most of the other things looks pretty much like we've answered. If there's any other questions, we will follow up with you guys. We will take all of them through email, or we can follow up through with like blog posts and whatnot. So I want to end the webinar now. I want to thank everyone who took the time to join us today and learn a little bit more about Revu 2018 and how to navigate around this new interface. And I was a little bit of a skeptic in the beginning. It took me a little bit of time to change, but now going back to 2017, I couldn't imagine not using 18. I think once you spend a week in reason, they've moved things to be where they should be, if you will, and they move things so that they're easier to find and they're kind of more of a workflow and not just kind of placed wherever. So again, thanks everyone for joining me, and I'm going to sign off now. Take care.